Hey, it's Juck. Today, we got a Jordan Davison update. Mark Coleman saves his family from a house fire. Caleb Downs gets a Range Rover, and I went on a rant I wasn't going to air, but what the hey. Let's get it. And welcome into Juck on Bucks. So the most immediate question mark after Tony Alfred's departure is the status of Jordan Davison. That's one of the top running backs in the class of 2025 from San Diego out at Mater Dei. And he had a visit planned at the end of this month, a 4-day visit, to come and essentially be with Tony Alfraud for 4 days, tour the program, tour the school, the whole jazz, and now Tony's gone. Well, 247 got a hold of Jordan Davison today and asked him, how does this impact his decision? And he says, not really, but it does hurt because of the relationship I had with Coach Alford. Hopefully they hire someone I have a relationship with already. As far as his visit to Ohio State, has anything changed? He said, not as of right now, but I have to sit down with my mom and talk about it. So, who knows? I'd say, the Buckeyes were kind of leading, most people thought, against Texas. Kind of coming down to Ohio State and Texas. I would say this probably at least puts the Buckeyes at down to even and maybe a little bit behind Texas. And I would imagine that Ryan Day is going to try to step in himself and take over that role for now until he finds the right guy. So we talked about a couple potential candidates to take over that running back role, and a couple more have come out today. DeMarco Murray we talked about yesterday from Oklahoma, Norvell McKenzie from Georgia Tech, and Robert Gillespie from Alabama, who would be my number one pick. Former Buckeye Scotty Graham has emerged as a potential candidate. A lot of folks keep bringing up Eddie, even though Eddie said that he's not interested already, we heard. So I don't really think that's going to change. Also saw Pepe Pearson get thrown around, Maurice Claret. Everybody wants a Buckeye in there. I get it. But when we're talking about running back coach, we're talking about recruiting. And nobody on this list recruits like Robert Gillespie down at Alabama. In fact, he recruits so well that when Kalen DeBoer went down there, despite the slew of poor decisions he made, in my opinion, in that staff, he made two good ones, and that was to pull Robert Gillespie and defensive line coach Freddie Roach aside and give them a raise and a title promotion. So Gillespie is now, one of whatever titles they give these guys as an excuse to give him more money. Assistant head coach deals where there's 5 assistant head coaches on a staff. It's just kind of a goofy thing they do to give him a raise. But he got a raise. Kalen pulled him close and said, you're my guy. I need you to make this work. And I would imagine that probably makes him feel pretty good about his situation at Alabama. And Alabama is one of the few places that Ohio State can't come in and have the name brand where it's an immediate better job on your resume than Alabama. There's just a couple out there that Ohio State can't trump in that department, and Alabama is one of them, unfortunately. So I don't think the odds are great on Gillespie, but I think Ryan Day is going to try everything he can to get him because he's far and away the best guy you could go after, in my opinion, and I think that most people would say the same thing. So anyway, that's the haps on that. As far as the other running backs in the class, you got Marquise Davis out of Cleveland Heights, and Tony Alfraud had a good relationship with Marquise Davis. Marquise Davis has a visit scheduled that he is not going to be coming to. I don't think, and it's coming up. It was supposed to come up pretty soon, but he's in Cleveland Heights. So, whenever he wants to come down and do that, he can do it. And I think he's been on campus before. Bo Jackson has been on campus several times. I think Bo Jackson is the most likely one to sign first in this class. And I think that's pretty close to being done. But Marquise, as I said before, he's the guy I like the most between him and Bo. And that's a minority opinion. I just think Marquise is unbelievable. And I am scared now because Marquise is also interested in Michigan. And Tony going to Michigan obviously is going to help that, I would imagine. So that's a scary one, man. Seeing him at Michigan would really irk the crap out of me. And seeing him at Michigan anyway would irk the crap out of me. But seeing him at Michigan because Tony Alfraud left and went to Michigan and pulled him up there. Oh, buddy. But, hey, look, we're going to keep swinging. We're always going to have a good back. Jeff Overton, he's the running back from Virginia that's ranked 802nd in the country. And he is a guy that, per the rankings, is not very exciting at all. But I read his comments today, and if this kid doesn't sound like a 25-year-old, man, I mean, it was pretty impressive. This kid says about his visit, I just swept it off the screen. I'm not gonna take the time to look that up again while I got you guys on here. But anyway, he sounds really mature, and I really now like Jeff Overton after reading the statement of what he said about Ohio State. And he should say that as the 802nd ranked player in the country being recruited by Ohio State. I imagine that's pretty flattering. But he also has an offer from Tennessee and a bunch of other smaller schools. As for his tape, I watched it. He seems pretty good. I don't know why he's ranked quite so low. I mean, I would probably say he looks closer to a top 300 player, but definitely not on the level of a Marquise Davis, Bo Jackson, or Jordan Davison. Jordan Davison is probably the best back in the class. Some services have him ranked number 1. And, hey, we'll see how it shakes out. We won't know anything for a little while, at least until we find out who the new running back coach is. And I don't know if Jeff Overton was, sometimes when you get a lower ranked guy, it's someone that position coach has found and has developed a relationship with, and that's the only reason that your school is after him. Like a Javon Boggs with Brian Hartline, he went and got on him early. The Bucks just going off their normal rankings and such, I doubt would have been on him early, but Brian Hartline saw something that he liked. I'm thinking Tony Alfraud saw something he liked in Jeff Overton, so I don't know if he's still going to be a priority recruit, but he was as of now, and he definitely seems to like Ohio State. Also, the son of a coach, his dad had a great statement too about Ohio State, so maybe they will stay on him. Kid will be solid, but I'd put him in the Sam Williams-Dixon kind of area as far as talent goes. It doesn't always mean you can't be effective. But anyway, that's it for that. Mark Coleman, UFC legend, Ohio State Buckeye legend, national champion, Olympian, the godfather of ground and pound in the UFC. It was a quote of his that bore that phrase, ground and pound. He was staying with his parents up in Toledo, and there was a house fire. Now, he's 59. And everything I've read, I can't find his parents' ages, but we got to assume they're in their 80s. So he wakes up, the house is on fire, it's smoky, it's burning, and his immediate reaction is obviously to try and get out, but he fights through it and busts in his parents' room and carries them out of the burning house to safety, tried to go back in and get his dog, who's named Hammer, which I thought was pretty cool. That's his nickname, Mark the Hammer Coleman. And he couldn't get his dog out. So he lost his dog, wakes up in the hospital. He was in there obviously smoke inhalation. He was in pretty rough shape. And his parents lived, and there was a video that got released on Facebook on his account of him with his daughters when they came in. And it's a tearjerker, man. I mean, just putting yourself in that situation that he was in, it's everybody's worst nightmare. The house burnt to the ground. It took 7 fire departments 7 hours to put this fire out, and it's obviously a total loss. But everybody lives, but he lost his pup, and that sucks. But absolute wonderful story that he was able to save his parents, and I mean, yeah, just really moved me. So he's had a hell of a weird life, man. This guy's lived through a lot. I mean, he was on top of the world, then he came crashing down. He was also one of the guys that was involved with that Strauss, that doctor, that molester doctor at Ohio State. He was one of the victims of that. He was a champion in Japan in Pride. He is a recovering alcoholic. I mean, the guy's been through a ton, and he's now hooked up with that fruitcake Liver King, that Juice Head Liver King, and Mark Coleman came out and said he was eating animal testicles, and makes you feel like a real man. So just a different dude, man. But what a story! Absolutely wild story, saving his parents in a house fire. So props to him for that, man. So we heard today, after the news of Tony's leaving broke, that a couple of the players had some, I don't know, maybe some shots fired, you could say. Quinshawn, Dow, and Hayden both unfollowed Tony Alfraud from Twitter, whatever that means. I hate to play the unfollowed and follow game to kind of read into what somebody's thinking, but I think it's pretty safe to interpret that they weren't happy with him. Jermaine Matthews came out and said, stand on what you preach. Didn't put Tony Alford's name on that, but we can assume he's talking about him, I'd imagine. And you can be almost certain that many of the players that came back for their senior year are not too happy to see one of their 10 assistant coaches go to the rival that, he spent all their careers preaching against, and then to go just flip sides like that. I don't think it's going to sit well with them. And it's certainly going to bring some extra added fire to the game this year. And I guess for that, we can thank Tony. So that's great. And you may not have caught this story, but this one I just caught today, and I had heard something about it, but I didn't quite realize to the extent. So Fox is going to be carrying Friday night games this year. And we're not talking about Fox Sports 1. We're talking about Fox on regular, basic, standard TV. And that's a big deal because that's not happened before. And Ohio State has long held firm that they do not want to play Friday games because of the negative effect it will have on high school football in Ohio. And we could be seeing the Buckeyes play a Friday game this year. Tony Petitti came out, talked about the significant national attention it could bring and the exposure to have games Friday night, Big Ten games on Fox. And there's been more college games on Friday nights over the past few years. But the plan now is to schedule big-time games. Specifically, we'll be seeing the fourth-rated game in the Big Ten on any given Friday night. So I went through and looked at the schedule, the Big Ten schedule, and I chose what I thought would be, at a quick glance and knowing what we know about the teams going into this season, what the number 4 draft pick would be each week. And we're talking about some serious big-time teams and some decent games here. So let's go through. Here's a couple I saw. These are the 4th ranked games of the week. We got Ohio State, Michigan State, USC, Minnesota, Washington, Iowa, Minnesota, Maryland, Wisconsin, Iowa, Oregon, Maryland, and Penn State, Minnesota. So we're talking all of the big, what do we got? Big 6 programs now in, so what would we say? So we got Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. Then we got, out of the new guys, USC, Oregon, Washington. So we got 6 kind of upper crust programs. Washington maybe a little on the fringe, but 5 upper crust programs. Washington and maybe Michigan State would be that next tier. And we should do that, break them down into tiers. But we got about 6 programs that are primetime programs that have national championships and that are legit contenders for the playoff. And they are going to probably each play a game on Friday night this year. We're not talking about Friday night games with FIU or UConn anymore. These are legit contests on a Friday night. And I think that's pretty cool in the fact that I'm be excited to watch them. And that's great. But, Ohio State doesn't like it because they think it's going to hurt high school football. And, well, I mean, if they think that, I imagine they got some data to back that up. And I certainly don't want to hurt Ohio high school football. But I guess this has been a big battle for a long time. I didn't know about it. But the National Federation of State High School Associations is very upset about this, and they released some statements. Ohio State, as far as the Big Ten schools' attitudes on this, Ohio State, Penn State, and Iowa don't want to play on Friday night. They've expressed that. Michigan flat out said no, they will not. I don't know if they can get away with that, if they're scheduled to do it or not. I really don't know how that works when it comes to this. These contracts, but an Ohio State spokesperson said Friday night games present challenges, namely significant to traffic because Friday classes are still in session, the stadium's on campus, and we don't want to go head-to-head with the rich tradition of Ohio high school football. Former Indiana coach Tom Allen said Friday night is for high school football, bottom line. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, till somebody tells me to shut up, then I'll say it again. That's cool. I like that. But it's not just the Big Ten. The Big 12 commissioner, Brent Yarmack, announced last fall that the Big 12 is looking to actively play more Friday games. Austin Westlake High School coach down in Texas, Tony Salazar, said recently that college programs should stay out of the domain of high school athletics. And that's a coach who has some pull, a guy that put, that high school, Westlake, is a big one. Nick Foles, Sam Ehlinger, Drew Brees all went there. So he's a pretty big name, and he is getting on the Big 12 about this decision they're trying to make. And getting back to the 1960s, there have been agreements that preserve Friday nights just for high school. And in 2017, this organization of high schools made a resolution regarding high school football that colleges, professional teams should all refrain from scheduling contests on Friday night to invest in their own future success and demonstrate that high school football has a value that will be not just on the field, but in communities, and a value for scholastic teams, for boys and girls to benefit. Everybody benefits when football is strong. So the college football fan of me is like, hey, another day for college football. I'm all for it. But I also love high school football. But am I going to miss USC, Washington to go to a high school football game? And unless it's a good one. And of course, a Buckeyes game, I would never go to a high school game in favor of. So part of me is excited for it, and part of me is thinking, I guess they kind of got a point here. But I don't know, man. You look at the reasons of why the colleges want to do this, or why Fox wants to do this, and Petiti wants to do this. He's a network guy that was brought in to run a conference, and of course he's going to go for the biggest money grabs. Which, yeah, I could go on a whole rant about the money grabs that they've been making in recent years, but I'll save you from it. I'll just keep that one to myself. You already know how I feel about the playoff and why they're doing what they're doing and what it'll do the regular season. But like I said, I'm not going to get into it. So yesterday I did a segment making fun of Georgia quarterback Carson Beck and Georgia in general, because they will never get called out for the buying a championship thing. And he was standing in front of his new Lamborghini Urus. So I just did that yesterday, and I'm sitting here with egg on my face today as the foundation proudly tweeted this. And that is Caleb Downs and his brand new Range Rover. And you might say, well, that's a Range Rover, and Carson Beck has a Lamborghini. But that Lamborghini Urus is about $250,000, and Range Rovers can get up to $300,000. And this one looks like a pretty nice Range Rover. That doesn't look like your base model Range Rover. So it's not kind of the same deal. And I think the funniest part about this is the face on the salesman. Man, look at this guy. He is having a blast. That's the time of his life, man. Good for you, buddy. Congrats on your sale. And congrats to Caleb on the new ride. I think we can all agree that we'd like to see Caleb get a new ride for coming to Ohio State. Good for him. The Browns signed Jameis Winston. Now, we got this awesome dynamic in Ohio State football, and I love this about our fans, is we're pretty well split between three teams that are rivals on Sunday, in the Browns, Bengals, and Steelers. That makes up the bulk of Ohio State football fans' NFL choices. And the cool part is that it's the only time in life that we can be friends with each other, is we can all bond around Ohio State football, which to most of us means more than those NFL teams. So I always thought that was pretty fun and pretty cool. But my Browns, I'm a Browns guy, signed Jameis Winston, and I'm only telling you that to tell you a story. So you might have noticed that I like football memorabilia, and I particularly love helmets. It's probably why you're looking at all these teams saying, I know he doesn't like those teams, and I don't. But I do love helmets, and one of the helmets I got is a Florida State helmet. Now, this particular Florida State helmet is a little different than those ones back there, because this one is autographed, and that autograph is Jameis Winston's autograph. And I don't tell you that because I'm proud of it. I really don't like the guy, not much at all. But the funniest part about this is an autographed helmet, a Florida State helmet with Jameis Winston's autograph on it, is cheaper than one without it. And that's why I have an autographed Florida State helmet with Jameis Winston's autograph. So I thought about scrubbing it off, but then I said, the heck with it. I'll leave it on there. And now it made for a funny story tonight, I think. So if you don't find it funny, whatevs. Anyway, that's my show tonight, guys. Thank you for well, it's not quite my show. Here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to air. I went on a little rant earlier, and I thought, I don't think I should play that. You probably got a little fired up. So I thought, why don't I just re-record it in a calmer fashion? But it's getting pretty late, and I'm ready to go to bed, so I'm not going to record it. But what I am going to do now is play my rant. So if you don't want to watch me rant and get angry and irritated about a particular topic, go ahead and cut it off now, and I will catch you tomorrow. Please check out the podcast Apple, Spotify, anywhere you can find podcasts, I'm there. And I appreciate you guys so much. If you want to watch the rant, stick around. If not, cut now. And remember, you can't hold me to anything I said because I told you now. You can just cut now. All right? All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon. Chuck and Bucks out. In many ways, recruiting is just sales. It's sales, and, we've all been in the professional world for a long time. I know the ages of who's watching. They tell us that, if you make a video, who's watching? Well, me, it's, guys my age and older. And I just ran into an issue today. I ran into an issue, and I feel stupid because I've defended this for a long time. And I'm just now realizing there's a serious problem here. So sales and recruiting, professional sales. We all know salesmen. Maybe you are a salesman. We've all been around salesmen. But so much of sales is want to. You gotta be a self-starter, a self-motivator. I'm not in sales. I don't think I'd be good at it because I have a hard time with rejection. But some of these guys in sales, man, they're great at it. And recruiting in so many ways is similar to sales. You have to be a self-starter. You have to have the wants to. And we all know that Tony Alfraud had some failures recently in recruiting. He's had some good cycles and some not so good cycles. And he had some hits, even of recent. James Peoples is a great one. But he had some misses. And particularly late to Miami. We know all about that too well. But I want to read you a couple quotes that I ran across in this coverage since Tony Alfraud has left. Quote, "It's not just Ryan being mean to Tony. They've really had to try to get Tony to recruit. Not that he wasn't recruiting, but get more into it. I've heard different people, and I trust, and I know that you have too, multiple times, Ryan wasn't happy with recruiting." That's two beat writers talking to each other. Here's another one. "Tony got a bit lazy on the recruiting trail and had to often be pushed and motivated to recruit to the level of expectation." So I heard all this, and I gotta say, it just made me scratch my head. And it seems like every time somebody leaves, or the damage is already done on something, that we hear some fellas in the media that we look for information to, keep us updated as to what's going on, to hold people of power to account, which is the role of the media. They let the cat out of the bag as to what's really going on, and they do it after the fact. Now, you could say that you can't report everything because it may be hearsay. And to that point, I would say, fair enough. But if you reported it today, or you reported it yesterday after Tony Alfraud left, then it was quality enough information for you to report. So if it was good enough yesterday or today, then it was good enough when it happened. And I don't know any reason that you could justify not reporting something then that you just reported now. So journalistic standards work like that. Either it's okay to report or it's not. And if you reported it yesterday or today, you could have reported it when it happened, right? If I'm off on that, somebody let me know. But I definitely never heard that Ryan Day was unhappy with Tony and his recruiting. And I never heard that Ryan Day was prodding Tony to get better at recruiting. Or maybe that's the reason that Tony didn't get an extension. Now, we speculated on that. Some of us did. Some of us tried to figure out a lot of reasons why Tony was missing out on these recruits. But we didn't hear any of that. And as fans, we look to these folks who break the news to, give us the reports on what's actually going down. That's their role. And while we're all sitting here having that discussion, And some of these guys we watch that report, that have shows, have this discussion about Tony Alfraud and his recruiting failures. We never heard this one. At least I didn't. And I like to think I stay pretty up and up on most of the stuff that goes on. So much so that that's why I decided there wasn't enough of it that I wanted to do it myself. And we know there's a ton of it, okay? But this is a storyline I never heard. That Tony was being lazy, essentially. So we talk about losing the recruits to Miami, and I think we all know darn well what Miami's game is at this point. They're paying big bucks to kids straight out of high school, and they're open about it. Mario Cristobal said last week at a spring practice, this is where they can make their money. Said that to a reporter. These kids that got NIL deals, this is where they can make it. So he's just fully embrace this. There's no shame in his game. He has found a way that he thinks he can get an advantage over other schools, and he's got the supporting and the backing to do it. So he's just coming straight out and saying it, right? Whatever, hey, don't hate on him. And this isn't about Mario. But this is about the game that they're playing. And maybe that's why we lost Jordan Lyle. Maybe that's why we lost Mark Fletcher. And I definitely think that's why we lost Justin Scott, because he tweeted in his commitment to Miami himself with piles of cash on Miami Beach with palm trees. So I believe that Larry Johnson didn't have I didn't put a whole lot of blame on him for that, when, you know, there's a faction of the fan base that thinks it's time for Larry to go. It's been time for a while. Now, I am of that opinion, but he signed his 2-year contract. I think this will be his last. Okay, it's fine. But I don't blame him for that, Justin Scott. You know, you have to differentiate. You can't just bag on somebody for everything, because there's nuance to things. And that particular one, I don't blame Larry for. There are other circumstances, and I'm not trying to get in bang on Larry. That's not what I'm doing here. What I'm talking about is this story yesterday that broke, that Tony Alfraud had essentially been warned several times by Ryan Day that he needs to pick up the pace, or prodded by him, not warned, but prodded to pick up the pace. And some very popular guys on the beat that have been around a long time. So there's this thing, right, that you hear often from guys that do shows, radio shows, podcasts, television shows, that aren't involved with that little media circle that covers the team. And the common refrain you hear is the beat is the mouthpiece of the team. The beat just carries water for the team. They disseminate their message. And they're a bunch of hacks, blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't participate in that kind of talk, and I think for the most part that's untrue. And for the most part, we got one of the better beats in college football. It's big. There's lots of competition, and because of that, we get really good coverage. And even some of the folks I'm talking about, I think, give really good coverage. I personally find them likable. Many of them started out as Buckeye fans, and because of their Buckeye fandom, they wanted to get into the media and cover the team. And I think that's fine. I think that there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I had my buddy Dylan on last week, who's a beat writer. And also a big-time Buckeye fan, also a Red Sox fan. I don't know how that happens. I didn't ask him, but whatever. The point is, it's okay to be a fan of the team and cover the team, and I don't think that makes you any less qualified, though you need to be objective, as Dylan stated when I had him on the show, and he is. But there's a certain sect of them that have been around so long that perhaps they've become too close to the program and the decision makers in the program. Maybe there's a feeling like they're part of the organization at times. I don't know what it is. But I feel like the idiot today, because I've stood up for them, for the most part, to these bombs that get tossed at them, and I feel like a fool. I feel like a fool, because yesterday and today, you just think it's okay to just come out and say, hey, here's this story that we never reported on, but it's okay to report now. Like, you should know that you shouldn't be saying, like, this isn't right. You are supposed to be in an adversarial role as a beat reporter. You are supposed to put people in hot seats. And there's one, Tim May does a pretty good job of it. Doug Lesmerises used to always do a great job of it, though he's not so much involved in every press conference and stuff anymore. So we've kind of lost out a little bit of his flavor. But there's definitely a big part of them, big sect of them that don't really put any pressure on. And for the most part, that's fine because we don't really need pressure. But it pops up every now and again where you hear something like this and you realize, man, you dropped the ball on that, fellas. You dropped the ball. And this isn't just at Ohio State. Michigan's way worse. Every single media outlet in the entire country was reporting essentially with the same tone when it came to the Michigan cheating scandal, except for the folks around the Michigan program that are on that beat. They essentially were the mouthpiece of the fan base and the mouthpiece of the Harbaugh administration. And they were saying something totally different. They were making up stories. They were throwing out allegations. It was shameful, to be honest, to call yourself a professional and do the kind of things they were doing. So they're definitely way worse. But the relationship between some of the guys who have a following that are on the Ohio State beat and the Ohio State staff that they cover is something that's kind of unique in college football, and it drives me nuts. You know, you look at professional sports, you look at baseball, basketball, the NFL, the media challenges them nonstop. They're bulldogs. They're supposed to be. They are all supposed to be, by nature, adversarial. That's how the relationship is supposed to work. And one of the things that you don't ever want to do in journalism, if you're an adversarial reporter, is to get too close to your subject. You're supposed to hold them accountable for poor decisions. We're not getting that. And it's no wonder, because the relationship has become too cozy with a lot of them and the coaching staff. And I'll give you an example, a recent example that really irritated me when it happened. And I'm not bringing this up because I'm talking about this particular instance. I'm just taking you back in a moment in time when I was very bothered by something. In fact, so bothered that I decided I was going to start making YouTube videos. It came this very night from this very instance. We all watched the Cotton Bowl, and we knew in the first quarter, roughly 2 to 3 series in, that there was zero chance that the offense was ever going to move the ball with Enoch Vamahi at guard and Matt Jones at center. Against that defense, and Matt Jones playing center, trying to make calls at center for the first time in his career. Absolutely no chance. We all knew it. None of you would disagree with that. And I think if I was to poll 100 people who know what they're talking about, like you do and I do, who watched that game and said, what is the single biggest reason that Ohio State couldn't move the ball on offense, you wouldn't have said freshman quarterback. You would have said the swinging door at right guard. I'm not trying to bang on Enoch. Nice kid. He's not that player. He's not a starter in the Big Ten. He's not a starter at Ohio State. We all know that. That's fine. He doesn't need to be. He's a good teammate. That's cool. Good for him. I like him. But he's not that dude. And Matt Jones, it's not the time to, here's the thing. If you're playing this game and you want to play some young guys and you want to go out and do that, I'm fine with it. But you came into the game and said you wanted to win the game. You had guys play in the game who were making NFL decisions that otherwise may have not played in the game. You had Cade Stover play in the game, who just was at the NFL Combine saying my agents advised me against it. I couldn't sleep if I wasn't out there fighting with my brothers. So when you got guys like that and you say you're gonna play to win, then you do everything that you can to win. And it was clear to all of us that you were not playing to win when you didn't make any changes on that offensive line. I don't think that's debatable. I really don't. So the question is, why? Why was it like that going in? Why did it stay like that when you saw what everybody saw? Well, I rewatched that press conference today because I wanted to make sure that I remembered it properly. And I did. So I'm going to tell you how it went. Tim May asked Ryan Day the second question of the press conference, straight to the point about the offensive line play. What's your take immediately? And number two, Carson Hinsman. He didn't play at center. Obviously, y'all made the switch. Matt Jones at center and Enoch at right guard. But their speed rushers kind of had a night. So what's your take on it? That was his question. Why did he make the change? Matt Jones at center, Enoch at right guard. Ryan Day said, well, I felt certainly there was some zero pressure that came. They were aggressive on Link. But in the run game, there were a couple of times we hit. But overall, you got to help a young kid in there. You got to be able to run the football, take some pressure off him. And we didn't do that well enough in order to win the game. I mean, the defense played pretty good enough. I thought they played their tails off, ran out of gas a little bit down the stretch. 14 points, 330 yards. They played great. We just couldn't put together on offense. And that's the story of the game. Now, I agree. And you do too, I'm sure. Defense played great. They looked awesome. The game was an absolute layup if there was even this much offense. And it could have been there had there been some adjustment in the offensive line. Now, no question was followed up. But he forgot to answer the biggest part of that question, and that was about Carson Hinsman. So we get towards the end of the press conference, and Bill Landis readdresses this and says, Ryan, let me just ask you directly, because Tim kind of bounced around. Why did you make the switch on offensive line to play Matt at center and put Enoch at right guard? Ryan said, very clearly uncomfortably answering this question. I didn't want to get too much into it. Carson was having a tough time the last couple of weeks at practice, and we just felt that this was the right thing to do at the time. You know, he was having a few issues there. Carson will never play here again, but based on the last couple of weeks of play, the decision was made that Matt would give us the best chance to win. Okay, so if you and I are in that press conference now, we hear that answer. Clearly, Ryan Day knows that even if he thought Matt was going to give them the best chance to win at center and Enoch at guard, he saw the proof that that wasn't giving you the best chance to win. So we know that because Ryan Day knows more in his pinky finger than we'll ever know about football, and we could see it. So what's the follow-up question? And let's also, why did he say it's not like Carson will never play here again? Carson's a freshman. Of course he's going to play here again. Why would he think that we thought he was never going to play there again? What is going on, right? Like, this is just a weird situation. And it's almost like, dude, listen, if you suspended this kid for an internal team rule and don't want to talk about it, I get it. Just say you suspended him and you don't want to talk about it. Fine. Stand on it. You made the decision. And if you believed in it that much that you were going to let your team take an L for it, then you really believed in it. Come out and say it. I'll respect it. Fine. You're the coach. It's your team. You feel the need to discipline your team in a way like that? Stand on it. That's the way I was brought up, and that's the way I believe is the right thing to do. But he didn't say that. He pretended like he did it because this is what he felt was the best way to win. And though I think everybody would disagree with that going into the game, okay, let's see it, coach. Well, we saw it in the first quarter. It clearly was the wrong decision. You didn't pivot from it. So if my role is to be the adversarial media guy that covers the team, I think I'm going to try to get to the bottom of it. But that was the end of the questioning. We never heard it We never heard it again. And it made me so mad that we never heard it again that I said, man, I'm going to start a show and rant about that. And I never did because at the time, we got nothing but good news when I started the show. And I thought, well, listen, I know that happened, but who cares at this point? And I don't. That's the thing. I'm not trying to make this about that game. I could care less, but I do want to just highlight this as an example of a time where they should have been adversarial, and they were not. They were not at all. So, we got another example here. So I'm just trying to ask myself, all right, Jeff, what is the difference that makes this work in the NFL, where there is this adversarial role, where we see coaches get mad and storm out and get angry? They're being mad because they're being made uncomfortable because they're being asked questions by the journalist that they don't want to answer, or that they know they've screwed up and they don't want to be in this uncomfortable situation in a press conference. That is the way it's supposed to be, because that's how you get to the truth and the bottom of things. We don't see that in college football programs. And again, I'm not just talking about Ohio State. We don't see that in college football programs. What we see is the coach up there, and he is the boss of the room. And they're listening to him, and they're asking him what he is wanting them to ask. And that's wrong. It's just wrong. These folks are working for the public to get answers. Like, that's, and it's starting to seem to me like I've been wrong all along, and they're actually, it's the other way around. They're working for the team. And this example yesterday and today with Tony Alfraud, I've still yet to hear anyone say anything but well wishes for. I've heard I love Tony Alfraud. I hope he wins every game, but one for Tony Alfraud. Now, I'm not trying to say this is a bad thing because Tony Alford's a bad man. I'm saying this because we all know this. We're not journalists, but we know that a journalist covering a team is not supposed to get close to their subject because it can create a conflict of interest. We know that. And they know that. But they're so comfortable that they can just, that this is just fine and this is the way it's done at Ohio State, that they feel free to just say that. You're not supposed to say that. Chip Kelly was hired as the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, right? The head coach from UCLA dropped down and decided to be a coordinator at Ohio State. A massive story. The entire country was talking about it. It was the biggest story in college football. We didn't hear from Chip Kelly talking to the media till he was at Ohio State for 3 weeks. Okay, whatever, your prerogative, but I want you to compare that to the NFL for a second. The NFL, you hire an offensive coordinator, and you bring him in, and you almost show him off to the media. Look at our shiny new offensive coordinator. And he has a press conference. I mean, we just saw it this week with Dorsey and the Browns. So why is there such a difference? And I'm trying to figure that out, and I guess I'm thinking, well, it's probably just a holdover from the times when college football was just an intercollegiate match between two colleges and they were amateur athletes. Guys, that's not what we have anymore, okay? These are massive, money-making, professional organizations, college football teams, all right? The athletic department's bringing in over $200 million a year. The college football playoff deal is about wrapped up. It is going to be 14 teams, by the way. And the Big Ten teams are all going to be making an extra $21 million off of that. All right, so the head coach makes over $10 million a year. The assistant coaches all make close to $1 million a year. That's all state of Ohio money. The players, most of which make more than the average Ohioan does annually. So this isn't that. Okay, so if it was set up to be like, all right, this is college, this is how we do it in college because these are kids, and this is, okay, it's not supposed to be like that anymore, right? Like, it's not. It's time to evolve that. Of course, the colleges have no interest in evolving that because this is how they've obviously bred this little control factory that they have with the media where they can use them and hold off access and do all the crap that they do. Whatever they've done to make this work like this, it's not supposed to work like this, man. These journalists are not supposed to be this comfortable. They're not. And you got these other, there's a lot of guys that came up as beat reporters with newspapers, and newspapers shut down and they started their own things on the web, and they're running their own business. And I think that's awesome. It's great. I'm happy for them that they were able to pivot into that and make a business out of that. But when your business and your livelihood is reliant upon your access to a program, you certainly don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. So maybe that's making them less adversarial. But something has bred this. Something has fostered this environment that has made this so different than it is in the professional leagues. And it bothers me. because the media, again, should be adversarial by nature with their subjects. Not saying I love the man, talking about Tony Alfraud. And I give you another example, and this one, someone who is a guy that I think we all really respect, but Ryan Day was sitting across from a reporter, and he was talking about the Julian Sands situation. And as he's talking about the Julian Sands situation, he's saying how difficult it was for him. And he says, well, you know, I called you. Now, that to me was a clear sign that, they're actually pals, right? They're buddies. And at the time, I didn't think much of it. Like, whatever. I mean, of course you're buddies. But, you know, this happened today with this news that got withheld about Tony Alfraud and his performance and his job performance that they all knew. And then I'm looking back thinking of other instances, and I thought of that, and I'm like, oh, yeah, bud, that's not the way that's supposed to be. You're not supposed to be the guy that covers the coach and also is the guy he calls for advice. That's not the way that's supposed to be. And when it is like that, well, maybe you get yourself some advantages, like the exclusive interview with the coach that you're sitting with right now that none of the other reporters got. It's not supposed to be like this, guys. If anything I'm saying irritates you because you like some of these guys, I want you to know that I do too. And I'm on our side, okay? They're not on our side. Coach been with us for a decade, who's had opportunities to move on in the offseason to excellent institutions. He had them just this offseason. And then he chose to go to our hated rival. And our media is wishing him good luck. These are guys that are supposed to be fair and balanced. They're wishing him good luck because they love him. They're supposed to be adversarial. They're supposed to be on the side of the public to get answers. Hey, what just happened here, man? How did this go down? How did this happen? Why is this guy so mad that he just made this move when he didn't go to Notre Dame and he didn't go to USC and he didn't take the call from Miami, but he waited till after spring ball to go do that? What's really going on here? It's not right, guys. It's not right. And I know that not everybody's going to agree with me, but the fact is, I feel like a moron because I've been sitting here fighting against this very narrative that I'm saying here today. But like always, I came with examples, at least, of what I'm talking about. So, agree with me or not, something needs to make this change because this should not be like this. This is not the way this is structured. This is not the way this is ever supposed to work. And we deserve to know the truth. I mean, I'll say it like I said, we support the team. We pay the NIL. We buy everything. So it's not a none of your business thing. That's not what this is. This is just, we have just as much right to know the same amount of information on the same level as we get from our NFL teams that we're fans of. We deserve that. We do. We pay the salaries. We pay for everything. The colleges don't pay. Ohio State, man, if I showed you the list of emails over the years asking for donations for this or that from Ohio State, everything they do, they send out to their donors and ask for donations. So, yeah, we deserve to know when there's a coach who is getting prodded for being lazy. If the media knows about it, and they did. They all did. And if they report about it, that means it met the standards to be reported on. So it met the standards to be reported on yesterday, but not before. Why? And that's it. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say. Why? Why any of this? Why is it like this? It should not be like this. So, all right, that's my rant. Man, I don't know if I'm gonna air that sucker.